Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to do my January. So once again, welcome back. I am so glad you decided to click on this video. Like I said, today I am going to do my January wrap up. Now it is only the 28th today, but I need to do this because I have read too many books, and if I wait any longer, I've got plenty of content. That's what I'm saying. We have enough to talk about, so I will just tack on the rest of the books maybe to February wrap up, or I'll just let you know in that wrap up what books I finished out January with. So I have been trying to keep track a little better of the books I'm reading as far as like the category, giving it a star rating maybe with a 0.5, noting what format I've read and how I acquired this book. Did I get it from the library? Was I given a gift? Did I buy it? That kind of thing. So I thought that would just be something fun to like throw in there when I'm going over the books that I read. So I'm not going to talk in depth about all of these because a lot of them I thought were meh. So it's just kind of, there's not much to say. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot of books to talk about. So the first book that I read was Breaking and Entering by Dawn Gilmore. This book I gave a 2.5 to. I listened to this on an audiobook, and this is a contemporary fiction book. It was okay. It was okay. It was about a woman who is like kind of a bored housewife, and she gets into lockpicking as a hobby and then is like kind of breaking into people's houses. It's kind of silly, and I honestly thought it was fine. I just really got bored, and I just got too much to read to be into that, but I did listen to it on audio. It was from the Libro FM influencer program, and I don't feel like I'd recommend it really just because it was pretty average. Next, I read Needful Things by Stephen King. This I gave 4.5 stars to. I read the physical book, and this is actually a book that I read the majority of, I think, in December, but I finished it in the beginning of January, so I just calling it January. So this is actually really, really good. This is one of the Stephen King books that I had like put off because it's so long, but I'm so glad that I read it. It takes place in Stephen King's fictional town of Castle Rock, Maine, where this man comes in and takes over a storefront and basically starts selling people whatever like their biggest desire is, but there's always, a cost for these things. For example, there is one of the kids who just really wants a Sandy Koufax rookie card. I think it's a rookie card. They're like, okay, so you can have this, but you just need to give me whatever money you have, plus you just need to do one thing for me. And it's like play a prank on someone in town. And so this happens to everyone, but then everyone's getting mad at each other and getting violent with each other. And this guy, he's got a little magic, so he is able to produce what exactly it is that these people want. It was really good. It was very long, like a lot of Stephen King books, but I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. Next, I read Come and Get It by Kylie Reed. This I gave 5 stars to. I listened to the audiobook. I got it from Libro FM's influencer program. I adored this. This is not going to be a book for everyone because it's very slow-paced and character-driven, but I loved it. It's about a woman who's a adjunct visiting professor at the University of Arkansas. She becomes friendly with the RA of this like transfer student dorm, and so we get the perspective of the RA. We also get the perspective of a few of the girls that live on that hallway who live in a 3-person suite together. And again, it's like very slice of life kind of stuff, not a ton of plot, but I loved it. I thought it was so good. Kylie Reed wrote Such a Fun Age a few years back that I really enjoyed too. And honestly, I think this might be one of my favorites of the year. I don't really know what else to say about it because, like I said, very character driven, but I definitely recommend it if you tend to have the same preferences as me as far as books. Definitely want to check out. Next, I read Baby, You're Gonna Be Mine by Kevin Wilson. This is a book of short stories. Overall, I gave it a 3, and I read the physical book. I bought this, and honestly, it was fine. I liked some of the stories better than others, as is always the case with a short story collection. I had higher hopes, I think, just because of how much I've loved Kevin Wilson's like 2 novels that I've read by him, but You win some, you lose some. I mean, I'm still glad I read it. Overall, this one was just okay. Next, I read Relinquished by Gretchen Sisson. This is nonfiction, and I gave it 5 stars. I read this on ebook, and I got it from NetGalley. So this is a book that I've talked about before. It was just brilliant. It talks about how adoption in the United States is just a disaster. It really focuses on the mothers and how basically we need to revamp the whole system, because the way it is now is basically human trafficking that's legal. The way that birth mothers are treated post delivery is horrible. They are lied to, they're made false promises to. I learned a lot. It gave a lot of perspective, and I can't recommend this enough if you are open to hearing other ideas on a subject matter I think that we are all driven to think one way about. So definitely recommend this. It's so well researched, it's so well written. The chapters are kind of broken up with interviews with actual birth mothers that the author had kept in touch with over a long period of time. So you really get to see how they kind of over time, how their feelings might change between how they felt when they gave up their child for adoption and how do they feel 10 years down the road. So really interesting. At no point did my mind wander, and sometimes nonfiction can be a bit of a challenge for me, particularly when I'm reading it with my eyes, not my ears. So this is definitely a book to check out, and it's not out quite yet, end of February, but definitely think this is one worth reading. Now, funny enough, after I read that, I started thinking about the next book that I read, which was Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and I had read this when it came out a few years back, and I really didn't like it much. I did not care for the perspective the author wanted us to think, I guess. The way that she wanted us to think, I didn't agree with. So in turn, I did not really care for the book. However, after reading Relinquished, and my viewpoint on adoption has changed quite a bit, I now really liked it. This time I gave it 4 stars. Last time I gave it 2. So definitely an improvement. Definitely a book that I have learned to appreciate a little bit more. I listened to the audiobook. I got it from the library. And this, has been out for a while, so I don't feel like I'm going to explain the whole plot, but there is a big storyline regarding a woman who had left her baby at a fire station because she just couldn't take care of her. And then she was adopted by white parents. The baby is Asian. And now the mom has her life together and wants her baby. She's been looking for her baby ever since. And it's like, who has the right to have this child? That's not even the main plot, but that is a big plot point. So anyways, it was just a really, really interesting book to read right after reading Relinquished. So maybe read them both together too. Next, I read The Girls We Sent Away by Megan Church. This was an ebook, and I got it from NetGalley. So this I gave 3 stars to. And again, this was kind of funny that I just happened to pick this up right after reading Relinquished and Little Fires Everywhere, because this is about a woman in the 60s. She's a 17 or 18, and she gets pregnant and sent to a home for unwed mothers where they take her baby, and how she kind of lives after that. I really liked this to start with, but the main character, Lorraine, gave me big, I'm not like other girls energy, which just ruins the character for me. I did not like that at all. Also, once she got to the home for unwed mothers, she kind of had an air of being better than everyone else there, because she came from a wealthy family. She wanted to be an astronaut, and she talked about these dreams, and she seemed like she felt superior to them because other women had come from poor families, had no ambitions to go to college because it wasn't a thing that could be a reality for them, etc. So the end of the book, however, I thought it really had a strong ending, and I wish that the whole book had been like that. I don't want to obviously say what happens at the end, but I really did appreciate how it ended, and I really did like that part. But the rest of the book was kind of a little less fun for me, but I did give this 3 stars. Do with that what you will. Next, I read City of Girls, which I will not really spend any time talking about because I have a whole vlog of it. This was a reread for me. It was still a 5-star. I listened to the audiobook this time and thought it was fantastic. Got it from the library. definitely recommend, and I will link above my vlog in case you want to see more. Next, I read Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. I spoke about this in my last haul video. I was a little bit of the way through it, and I ended up thinking it was just okay. I gave this 3.5 stars, so I guess it's a little better than okay. I was sent a physical ARC, so thank you to Celadon Books for sending that to me, but I felt like the plot twists, the big reveals, were just kind of predictable and just not that exciting. It was a clever concept of this woman blacking out and having no idea, like, you know, being accused of killing her friend and being like, I don't know if I did. I don't think so, but I don't know. And so that was interesting, but unfortunately, I just think it kind of fell flat at the end. Might be worth a read, though, if you're really into thrillers and want something that's maybe a little different. Next, I read The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. This I listened to as an audiobook, and I got it from the library. I gave this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. It's kind of a strangers on a train situation where this man and woman meet at a hotel or an airport bar in London, and they kind of come up with this plan that they're gonna murder the man's wife together. And it gets kind of wild and crazy, but I was very engaged. I really enjoyed the whole book. So yeah, this has been out a while, so it's nothing like super brand new, but I really liked it. I thought it was it kept my attention. I listened to the audio, so I, you know, sometimes mind wanders, but I really didn't at all. I thought this was good. Next, I read Last Acts by Alexander Sammartino. This I gave 2 stars to, sadly. I had the physical copy, and I did get this from the publisher, Scribner, so thanks to them for this book. So this was like 200 pages, so this should not have been like a book that took me a long time, that like really dragged, but it did. It's about this man who owns a gun shop that's really failing. He lives out in the desert in Arizona, and his son is a junkie. He has just overdosed, and so his dad goes to pick him up from the hospital and is like, okay, we're gonna get your life together. You're gonna help me start like marketing, and we're gonna get this gun shop going. And it just, nothing really happened. It was just really boring, and I didn't care about any of the main characters, honestly. It was like, I think supposed to be kind of like tongue-in-cheek humor, but it didn't really work, I don't think. So yeah, unfortunately this one was a big ol' miss. My first like book this year so far that I like really did not like, but I won't recommend it, but I think it sounded like a better plot than it actually ended up being. Next, I read This Disaster Loves You by Richard Roper. I got this from the Penguin Random House audiobook influencer program. I gave this 4 stars. I thought it was really good. I mean, it was nothing super novel or anything like that, but I did enjoy it. This book was written by the same author that wrote one of my favorite books it's called How Not to Die Alone, but also when it came out in paperback, they changed the name of it to Something to Live For. I don't know which one to call it, because I have a copy of it that's called How Not to Die Alone, but I don't think that's technically what it's being called now, so I don't know. I definitely didn't like this as much as I liked that one, but I still thought it was really nice. It's about a man whose wife left him like 7 years earlier. Like, she just bounced and sent him a note, but at the same time he's like, why haven't you contacted like any of your family and whatever. He's like sort of tried to like move on, but of course there's that question in his head all the time. He runs a pub in England. He starts to see TripAdvisor reviews that are written by a username that's like Lily Moon and then some number, and this username has a big connection to his wife, whose name was Lily, and like all the parts of the username. And so he starts thinking, okay, I'm gonna track her down by following where she puts her TripAdvisor reviews, because it was pretty like clear at that point they were like real time. She was updating it like right after she went to a place. And then he meets a different woman who's trying to get over her divorce, and it goes from there. I thought it was really cute. The ending was definitely different than I had expected. Again, not my favorite, not as good as the other one that I've read from this author, but I still definitely think it was really cute and worth the read. Next, I read Familia by Lauren E. Rico. This, I read the physical book, and I got it from Book of the Month. I gave this 5 stars easily. I would not be surprised if this ends up as one of my favorite books of the year. This was so great. It's about a woman named Gabby who works as a fact checker for a newspaper magazine, I think. I can't remember which. But for a story for a different writer, all of the people that work at this magazine are doing a DNA test, like an ancestry thing. And she finds out she has a match of a woman named Isabella who lives in Puerto Rico. And it's saying that they're sisters. And Gabby's like, absolutely not. She is an only child. Her parents have both passed, so she can't, like, question them about it. But, like, she's like, okay, this woman, Isabella, reaches out to her and is like, I would love to, like, meet you, talk about this. And Gabby is like, you are not my sister, but okay. She says, I'm going to write this article. I'm going to go to Puerto Rico and meet her. And so they meet and they kind of go through some stuff trying to figure out, like, what happened. Is it a false test, whatever. I just thought it was so beautiful. Such a great, like, sister type story that I love. It was just, I loved it, and I loved the message about, like, family that it gave, and I haven't really heard anybody talking about this, so I really would love to see more people reading it. It is so good. So if you have Book of the Month, you should definitely get this as an add-on for next month, in my opinion. I thought it was great. The next book I read was The Kind Worth Saving by Peter Swanson. This is a sequel to The Kind Worth Killing. I listened to the audiobook and I got it from the library. I gave this 3 stars, and honestly that feels kind of generous. So this book ended up taking the perspective of, like, the detective from the first book, and then also from another character from the first book. But the detective is a character that I really didn't care about. I really didn't like in the first book. So that kind of put a damper on things for me. I also really didn't like the narrator that did his chapters. So it could be partially that I didn't like the narrator and there was, you know, not really the book's fault, but I don't know. It just didn't work as well for me. I was definitely feeling like every minute of this, I was like, oh my gosh, how much longer do I still have? And that's never a good sign. So yeah, I wish they should have quit while they were ahead. I liked the first one, this one, not so much. Next, I read Acts of Forgiveness by Maura Cheeks. This I gave 3.5 stars to. I got this from NetGalley, and it was an ebook. So I liked this. I didn't love it, and I didn't like it as much as I wanted to and thought that I would. This is about a world where there is something that's going to be passed called the Forgiveness Act, where if any black family can prove that their ancestors were slaves, they will get $125,000 from the government. Which is great, you know, like, they should be. This should be a real thing. That would be lovely. But it follows this woman, Willie, who is trying to, you know, make sure she can get this. She has to go, like, find her history, and there's so hard to get records of that time and whatnot. So I really thought that a lot of this book kind of was dragging. We get a lot of backstory for, like, the first half of the book that doesn't really catch up to, like, the current time. And I just didn't, I mean, I thought it was interesting, but I was drawn to this book because of the plot and the whole Forgiveness Act thing. And so the fact that half the book was not spent having to do with that, it just kind of turned me off a little bit. And at the same time, I felt like the very end of the book was so rushed. I think that it was just paced very strangely. There was also, like, a romantic subplot that I just did not feel like needed to be there. It didn't really add anything, and it just kind of, like, took some of the focus away from, like, things that were serious in this book. I don't know. The writing was beautiful. I thought the story itself was a really interesting concept, but I don't know. It was just not my favorite. And if you like slow character-driven stories, again, maybe you should give this one a try. But for me, it was just kind of exhausting by the end. Next, I read The Displacements by Bruce Holsinger. I read the physical book that I purchased, and I gave this 5 stars. This was my book club's pick this month, and I am so happy to say that I think we all really liked it. All of us that read it anyways. And so this is about a Category 6 hurricane that comes and just destroys South Florida, and then it heads to the west and gets Houston. And so I just thought this was really well done. It's about this family who are extremely wealthy. They have this huge mansion out on Biscayne Bay in Miami, and their whole house is like, it's going to be destroyed. So they need to evacuate. This older son leaves the mom's purse at home by accident. And so they find themselves without any money or her phone or anything. And they're kind of having to live like poor people, that they've never had to experience that before. The husband's a surgeon and he's not with them though. Anyways, it was just like a really interesting look at environmental issues, climate change, and how that is coming for all of us. It doesn't matter how much money you have. I really thought this was good. It has real short chapters, which I know is a big thing for some people. There were little like snippets of like news stories kind of in between, and I loved that because they're kind of taken from like the future, looking back on this like event in world history. So I really enjoyed the format and the short chapters. I mean, it was a little bit long. It was like over 400 pages, but I thought it really flew by for the most part. I had read a book that I didn't really care for by this author called The Gifted School, so I was a little like hesitant at first, but I thought the plot of this sounded so good, so I was like, gonna do it. And I'm really glad that I did, because again, I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was super good, and I'm really glad that I gave it a chance. And the last book that I read is One of Our Own by Lucinda Berry. This I got from the Libro FM influencer program, and I listened to the audiobook. I think that this is actually more of like a novella, because it was only about a 4-hour audiobook. I listened to it like while I was making dinner and like doing a little cleaning, and I listened to it all at one time. I thought this was so good. I don't remember if I said this, but I gave it 5 stars. This follows a woman who's working at like a suicide hotline, and she gets a call from a girl who she ends up finding out goes to the same school as her son, and she is freaking out because there's like a video like circulating of her. Once she hears about how this happened at this certain person's party, the woman that works for the suicide hotline is like, my son goes to that school and was at that party. And they kind of end up forming a friendship beyond what is appropriate. And I mean, that's acknowledged in the story, that like she gives her personal phone number. She's like, you need to call me if anything is happening. Like, you're in high school, like I need to help you. And like, you don't want to do anything crazy. You don't want to, there's other options, that kind of thing. But at the same time, she's like terrified that perhaps her son could have been involved. And so I loved it. I thought the ending was so good, and I was just so engaged the whole time. I don't know if I would call this like a thriller, because it was really kind of like an episode of like Law and Order. So maybe more like a mystery versus like a thriller with a lot of action, but I really loved it. So I definitely recommend this. However, I do think it's only like an audio original, which is great because it was the way it was done. There was like really interesting things they did with the audio. So I would recommend that even if it was a regular book, but I do think it's only available as an audiobook, but definitely will recommend that one. So good. Now I'm currently in the middle of a few books. I'm reading Here in Avalon by Tara Isabella Burton. I'm also reading Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam, which I know a lot of people have opinions about, so I'm very excited to see how it ends and how I personally feel about it, because I'm like halfway done and I like it. It's very slow, but I'm enjoying it. So we'll report back on those two once I finish them. So I hope you like this wrap up. I am glad I tried not to make it too long, but it's still probably going to be longer than I wanted it to. Let me know what your favorite book was in the month of January, and leave me a comment down below. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you would, and I'll see you in the next one.